Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C, and today is a beautiful May 25th, 2016 graduation day for a lot of people around the country, Big C. And I want to thank all of our listeners from around the world, especially Latin America. So bienvenidos to you. Also, Big League Bud Light, Big C. I guess Big C likes his Bud Light, but we like our moonshine. Since you sent me that moonshine, Big C, it actually tastes pretty good.
Well, Charlton, that's what's called graduation, you know. Now you acting like a grown man and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
That'll put some hair on your back drinking that stuff, Charlton.
Well, I think as far as drinking that stuff, I know we talk about so much with acting and Hollywood, and I still want to go back to this thing because Chris Rock came out with the Oscars and talking about equality and everything. But how we transition that into acting is, you know, Chris Rock has been around for so long, but look at some of the great guys that he's acted with over the years. As a comedian, I just want to get your thought. Some of the great comedians, I think of Red Fox. I mean, people might laugh at this, but Andrew Dice Clay, of course, there was no one greater than the great Richard Pryor, Big C. Your thoughts on some of the great comedians that you've heard about over the years, Big C?
Well, when you look at comedians, Charlton, I mean, it's such a wide array of them. Even Eddie Murphy started out his career as a stand-up comedian, such as Chris Rock has done. You know, there's so many male and female stand-up comedians. The late Joan Rivers, that's what she was, a stand-up comedian.
Amazing.
And, you know, I used to love going and watching Joan because the show was about her, talking about herself. She didn't make as much fun as other people as she did about herself. And that's what Richard Pryor did, Charlton. When you had these great individuals that can make light of their own hardships in their lives, because then the audience really has a connection because you find these identifiers within your own life that they were talking about. And so it made it a perfect storm. You know, when they were doing their shows, you really appreciated the paper, not the paperwork, but the work that they
put in
on stage.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I knew I grew up watching a guy that did it clean, at least, on TV, the great Johnny Carson. And then he was followed up by the great David Letterman, and the late night Arsenio Hall had a show. So many comedians had shows, Big C. And you think of guys like Cedric the Entertainer. I saw him on it was Michael and Kelly Ripa show, but Michael went on to do more sports work for the network. But I think about some of this great talent that has always been a part of the sports business, Big C. And I mean, there's none other than the talent that goes out to these fights when we have the great fights. At least we used to have the great fights back in Las Vegas, Big C. But it was always lined with entertainers. And I'll never forget this time that Richard Pryor, in one of his skits, he had a skit in there. He talked about the great Jim Brown, and he was having some substance abuse issues, if you call it that, Big C. And he said he messed around and picked up this brick. He used to scare his friends. He had a rubber brick that he'd throw at him. And so his friend Jim Brown came by the house one time, and he tried to scare Jim Brown and threw a rubber brick at him. And he said, "Oh, my God, I hope it wasn't the real thing." I just think that's funny what Jim Brown would have done with a real brick hitting him.
Well, you know, when you think about the greatness of a Jim Brown, and, you know, he was one of the early on African-American athletes who went into acting, Charlton, because, you know, the owner of the Browns at that time, Art Modell, gave him an ultimatum that if he wasn't going to be in training camp, that he was going to fine him $500 a day. Now, Jim Brown was off making a movie, The Dirty Dozen.
Yeah.
And at that time, Jim Brown, during the off-season, was paid $90,000 for his role in that movie, Charlton.
That's not a lot of money, even today's standards, Big C. But especially back then, it's pretty decent.
Season, being the NFL's greatest player at the time, he was only making $60,000.
Wow.
So he made $30,000 more in 3 months than what he made in 6 months playing football. So it wasn't a tough decision for Jim. Everybody was trying to say, how can he retire at the height of his career being the best player in the league? Well, if you can get 50% more on your salary and you work 50% less, that's not a bad decision. Now, Charlton, we went through that here in the past couple of months with a young quarterback in San Francisco, Colin Kaepernick. Where all the talking heads were saying, well, he should take a 50% pay cut so he can go to another team. You know, this same scenario is not the first one. Jim Brown, an African-American athlete, had to go through that, as well as Colin Kaepernick, an African-American athlete. People saying, well, you need to take a pay cut so you can make us happy.
Yeah, and that's crazy because most of those guys, Big C, they won't go back to the networks and say, you know what, I was wrong about Colin Kaepernick. I remember they kept saying And this is right around when we were talking about March and April, and they were saying breaking news.
Pre-draft time.
Yeah, pre-draft. It's imminent. Kaepernick's going to be traded to Denver. He's going to take a $6 million pay cut. I think they were smoking something that's legal up in Denver, but I don't think Kaepernick was dealing with that stuff. But none of those guys will come out and say that they were wrong. They all say, well, Chip Kelly, they're going to make up now, and they never came out and said that they were wrong. They're not telling themselves to take a pay cut, but they were trying to get him, as if he's stupid, to take a pay cut, Big C.
Well, Charlton, it's not even admitting that you're wrong. Just say that you're lying on television, trying to be the first to break a story that may not break. So you're going to lie every day to the intelligent fans that are listening to you because they should believe you because you're knowledgeable, because you've never put on a jock in your life and you've never made any personnel decisions. But you know what's best for a guy to give up $6 million. You know, you take anybody who's listening to ESPN, Fox Sports News, NBC Sports, you tell me any person that's sitting up listening to these talking heads that is willing to take a 50% pay cut in front of his wife. No, in front of his wife, Charlton. And survive that storm, okay? I want to talk about getting cut. There's going to be a whole lot of men getting cut if they take a 50% pay cut just to watch a sports show.
What was that song that the great Janet Jackson sang that got everybody in trouble, especially all the men? It's called What Have You Done For Me Lately? And I'm going to say, what have you done for me lately? Okay, obviously, she sounds better than me.
Oh, come on, man. Don't do that. I'm on the other line. You know,
okay.
I don't want people thinking I'm a part of that.
But you know what I'm saying? When she brought that song out, it's like a commercial that comes on. People change this channel. When they changed the channel because Janet Jackson came out with that song, and then Beyonce, she didn't help any guys out either because she said, if you like it, then you should have put a ring on it. A lot of guys, when she came on, they all got nervous sitting in their seat, Big C.
Well, even Tony Braxton took a little further. You know, love should have brought you home last night. You know?
Leave Donald Trump alone. That man's out running for office, okay? I think that's what Marlena told him back in the day, or who was it? Like, what he had, some of the other great ladies that he dated over the years and married, but Marla Maples, I think, was one of them. But actually, when you talk about things that are exciting, and I want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go down and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. But also, Big C, I know we have a lot to talk about, and everyone's talking about basketball. I know Toronto's playing against Cleveland again tonight. That's a great game. Series tied at 2. But last night, OKC and Golden State, it seems like Golden State was tired. It seems like, to me, just my opinion, and I know people may not agree with this, but Steph Curry for the unanimous MVP did not get a lot of calls when he was knocked to the ground. Maybe that's the makeup for what's happened with Adams and also Draymond Green, but it just looks like OKC has a lot more moonshine in the tank, Big C. Should Golden State start drinking some moonshine too?
Well, you know, Oklahoma City, Charlton, has demonstrated throughout this series that they really wanted it.
Yeah.
Now, that win against San Antonio was not a fluke, Charlton, when you look at that series.
Yeah.
They actually dominated San Antonio throughout that series. And, you know, one of the things about OKC is that they've gotten healthy at the right time of the year. Durant missed some games early in the year. He missed a lot of the season last year.
Yeah.
So this is his free agency year, Charlton. And everybody has talked about the potential movement of a Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Now, if OKC goes and makes it to the finals,
he should still leave. He should still leave, though. There's no market for him, BC. There's no media market for him in OKC. I mean, great. The people at OKC are great. But when you look at the cosmopolitan and marketing for an athlete, Big C, OKC does not have the same appeal as New York, LA, or Los Angeles, or even up in Boston, and a lot of people say Washington. I just think as a marketing person, you have LeBron James signed a $1 billion contract with Nike. What is there to sell in Oklahoma City, Big C? It's just my own West Coast bias opinion.
Well, Durant last year signed a $200 million contract, you know, with Nike also, so it fits in the end. But, you know, I have to look at what Calvin Johnson said prior to retiring with the Detroit Lions. How rich do you need to be? Now, the $200 million shoe contract alone is enough to get you through the rest of your life. Okay,
I think I can make it on $200 million, Big C. Could you make it? We say the $1 million show. We can say $200 million. So I'll take it, Big C. I can shoot 20% from 3.
I can take care of a whole lot of people with $200 million, Charlton, but that's not what these players are doing. But, you know, when you look at marketing in Madison Avenue, okay, Carmelo Anthony went to New York.
Yeah.
The marketing mecca of the world. What have we heard from Carmelo Anthony? Just because you go to a certain city does not mean that you're going to set the world on fire. Outside of Shaq, Kobe, and Magic and Kareem with the Lakers, who do you know as notable players in the last 25 years with the Lakers who have really been Madison Avenue. I mean, LeBron is in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And he's being marketed more in Cleveland, which is no different than Oklahoma City in reality, than anybody else.
Yeah.
When you look around the NBA at the great cities, New York, you talk about that. Do you know anybody who plays on the New York Nets, Charlton? No, you don't. You can't tell me 3 players on the New York Nets. You look at the Miami Heat beyond Dwayne Wade, what do you have? You got the Los Angeles Clippers down in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You know about Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
Other than that, you don't know about the rest of the team. So when you talk about marketing and being in a market, San Antonio has as much marketability as any team in the NBA.
Yeah.
So it's not East Coast, West Coast. It's about what the media and the sports talk shows make of a player, Charles.
Yeah, and I think he's shown he's such a tall, lean athlete. But I think for athletes, when people go on vacation, when the season's over, I don't think many of them land up an airline ticket for Oklahoma City. They usually go to the East Coast or West Coast. And so that's what I mean as far as players that want to do something. Hollywood, and with the Rams coming back to Los Angeles, even though it's going to be in Inglewood, there's so much of a Hollywood presence. And that's like even the great Rick Fox that played for the Lakers in Los Angeles. He's been in enough movies also. And we talked about He Got Game. He was in there with Jesus Shuttleworth, Ray Allen. It's produced by Spike Lee, because there's a lot more to do. And of course, when they have private planes, Big C, you're right, they can fly anywhere they want to fly. But as far as the sexiness, LA is a sexy destination. New York's a sexy destination. Miami, Florida, those are great places for destinations for athletes that are bigger than life in a sense, at least for their sports. So that's what I was thinking when I said that, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, when you talk about sexy destinations, we've had this conversation for the past week about the Raiders going to Vegas. Now, isn't Vegas one of the most sexy destinations in the world? But Charlton, if you put a professional team as the Raiders and Mark Davis are talking about trying to go to Las Vegas,
yeah,
what are you going to? I mean, Vegas, when you look at the population of Vegas, Charlton, 23 to 24% of the Las Vegas population are born Nevadans.
Yeah.
Everybody else is transient.
Yeah.
So now when we look on game day, they put on fights in Vegas.
Yeah.
And those arenas are 15,000, okay?
Yeah.
15,000 is a little different than 70,000 when you're trying to put 70,000 butts in a seat.
Yeah.
And, they're talking about the money being in Vegas. The largest corporation on the Vegas Strip, the MGM Corporation, okay?
Yeah.
They filed for bankruptcy 2 years ago to protect their $15.5 billion in debt.
The MGM
Now,
did?
The largest corporation in Vegas. Now, if they're filing for bankruptcy, where's the money at? Who's going to buy all these luxury boxes? And then when we talk about people coming into town for games, okay, visiting teams, yes. It's the NFL sets out their schedule months in advance, so it allows you to buy tickets in advance. So when are you going to fly in 15 to 18,000 people from Charlotte when the Panthers are on the schedule?
Yeah.
When are you going to fly in 12,000 people from Jacksonville when the Panthers are on the schedule? When Cleveland's on the schedule, when are you going to get 20,000 people to come in from Cleveland, a hardship place?
Yeah.
To fly in. Not only that, Charlton, the airlines are going to have to put on extra planes to be able to accommodate bringing in people for a 2 to 3 day weekend.
Yeah.
That's not going to be economical for them. Yes, the hotel rooms are in Vegas, but Charlton, be realistic about the Raiders trying to go to Vegas. It is not an economic hotbed, not just the gambling that the NFL is going to fight, but it is not an economic hotbed. It's only the 40th.
Yeah.
Think about it. The 40th television market in the United States.
Yeah.
That's about 1/3 of what the Bay Area market is.
Yeah.
Now, if you have the 40th market, who's watching, Charlton?
So you're saying
are you
that...
going to be in a casino? Are you going to, in climate control? Or are you going to go out and sit in a stadium where the seats are 138 degrees? Okay?
I know UNLV, they have a stadium down there, and of course, I think it holds about 35,000. And I don't know if they sell out or not, but like you said, it's too hot to go down there. Are they going to build a dome stadium that they're going to use, 8 to 10 times a year on taxpayer money, Big C? Plus, most of the fans that go down to Vegas, they go there to lose money. They're not building large casinos because people are winning money and breaking the casinos, Big C. Even Phil Mickelson and Charles Barkley, they've lost money, and they got enough money to lose. But I'm telling you, the average person is not going to drive from the Bay Area or Los Angeles to fill a 70,000-seat stadium for a team that hasn't won 8 games in about, 10 years, Big C?
Charlton, when was the last time the Raiders had a sellout in Oakland? They tarp off the top of the stadium, okay?
Yeah.
So those people who are loyal Raider fans, as you said, they're not getting in the car and driving whatever freeway that is between Oakland and Las Vegas to get there. And now with the Rams going back to L.A., who's going to drive from Los Angeles to Vegas?
Yeah. No,
you're
I
not
agree.
going to add an extra lane to the freeway. You're not going to put on an extra 40 flights to bring these people out there, because if you do the math, Charlton, you're going to have at least an extra 40 flights.
Well, see, Big C, I never said that math was my strong suit, Big C, but I will tell you this. I don't think it's Mark Davis' strong suit either, because he's part of that Bay Area contingent that keep telling athletes they should take less money, but then they still owe Alameda County $40 million for what was Mount Davis that his father put up in Oakland. So now they're saying they're on the hook for $40 million, and they're going to leave to Las Vegas if they don't build them a new stadium. Maybe they just think people are dumb, Big C. Maybe that's part of it.
They ran out on Los Angeles. They had a lease at the Coliseum, and they ran out of there. They left Los Angeles high and dry. Everybody that was involved in the organization, they just tiptoed out in the middle of the night, went back to Oakland, just like they had done going to Los Angeles. So where is any loyalty from a fan going to be? If you leave us again, you just take everything that's yours and forget about us.
They said the autumn wind was a Raider, and it comes in town to take. And I think what they're going to start doing in Alameda County is put on some more Janet Jackson music instead of that Def Leppard and What Have You Done For Me Lately? And that's when you can only take so much money out of the taxpayers' pockets, if they want to leave, and I grew up watching the Raiders, but at some point in time, maybe if the fans stop buying tickets and they want to leave, but they're going to leave on their own dollar. I hope when you have
fans go down and rent them a U-Haul and say, hey, we'll help you load it and you can go.
Exactly.
That's what they need to do.
Exactly. And they left before, and I feel for Raider fans because they don't have the same respect. And we just saw the NFL let it happen again to the great fans of St. Louis. And people will say, well, St. Louis is not supporting. But how many times have they won over 10 games, even 8 games in the last 8 years in St. Louis? They can't just expect people to.
Super Bowl run with Kurt Warner.
With Kurt Warner.
They put a quality product on the field, and Kurt Warner now is in the Hall of Fame, so he's been gone for a decade.
Yeah, so they can't just think because they're the NFL that people are going to spend $50 to $100 for a cheap ticket, and if you get one of the more expensive tickets, Big C, then you're talking it could be up $500 to $1,000 depending on what city you're in. So I think a lot of times people are more smart than to just take money and put it on the credit card to go see a team that's always threatening to leave you, Big C.
Well, it's that girlfriend. You can only beg her so much, so please don't leave. I'll make things better. I'll do better this time. And every year the draft comes around, and it's always promising. It looks good on paper. But, paper, what can you do with paper, Charlton? You can take it and crumple it up in your hand.
Yeah.
That's how good these predictions are about the draft and who's going to be what and who's going to perform.
Yeah.
There's no guarantees out there. Everybody can speculate it and make guesses.
Yeah.
But, what's true and profound, Charlton, is the team being in a community.
Yeah.
Being a part of the community, being supported by the community. You just can't always turn your back as an owner. It's not like you're broke.
Yeah.
Now, you think about it. We talk about athletes making millions and millions of dollars, okay, Charlton?
Yeah.
But we have not talked about one owner cringing, writing a check. Now, he's wealthy. Now, the athlete might be rich, but the owner's wealthy.
Yeah.
So if you can go out and give a player, Charlton, a $100 million contract, okay, and we've seen that the past 5 years where they've thrown out $100 million contracts like the Skittles at a party. Okay? They don't care. Here, have another one.
Right.
And so if you can give somebody a $100 million contract, how can you sit up and say, well, we're losing money?
Yeah.
Well, you're losing money by making dumb contract decisions.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Don't give the guy a $100 million contract, give him a performer contract. So you give it to him based on wins, touchdowns, and yardage.
Yeah.
That's what you give out contracts on, not because I can pay you $26 million and you only give me 5 victories, and now you're one of the best quarterbacks in the league. That's a bunch of crap, Tom.
Well, they always try to build people up by giving them these guaranteed contracts, but I think you got to earn sometimes the money on the field. And speaking of money, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California BMW dealer, home of the ultimate driving machine. Go down and test drive the 1 Series all the way up to the 600 horsepower M7, also known as the 760 Li, and we can test drive it. Let them know that Charlton and Big C sent you. So, Big C, one of the questions I want to ask you, because We talked about the cities yesterday that are getting a Super Bowl. The NFL is actually trying to reward teams for building state-of-the-art stadiums. And we talked about, as players, sometimes they really don't care where they live. But one of the great things about relocation, if that makes sense, it's only sexy for the short time. It's not long term. You think about some of the great organizations like the Miami Dolphins. They've been in South Florida for years. You think about the New York Giants. They've been up in New York and New Jersey for years. And even when you look at the 49ers, they've been out here in the Bay Area. They're a staple. They've only moved a couple of stadiums, but they've been here. Someone like the Dallas Cowboys, I know they've been in Dallas for a long time. And I hate when guys like Jerry Jones is saying he's in favor of sending young athletes to a city where prostitution is legal, gambling is legal. There's so many things that they want to stay away from, but they're going to put these young, virulent men in the heart of the storm. Doesn't make any sense to me, Big C. So I wonder if Jerry Jones is going to say they're going to bring the Dallas Cowboys out to the great state of Nevada and put them in Las Vegas. I don't think he's ever going to say that, Big C.
Well, you look at the free alcohol also, Charlton, that's a part of the Nevada climate. You know, if you're in a casino, they're going to pour to keep your glass full. But, you know, when you're talking about moving an organization, now how would the NFL feel if the Green Bay Packers said, hey, we're leaving Lambeau. We're going someplace where it's warm.
That might be next, Big C. That might be the next talk. Maybe they want to feast. Go ahead.
You never want to be in Wisconsin again. You know, are you taking the Chicago Bears out of Chicago?
Yeah.
Think about these heritage organizations, Charlton, that would be leaving somewhere. Say if the Washington Redskins wanted to leave Washington because they wanted to keep their name and they didn't want to have that fight with Congress right down the street.
Yeah.
And were going out to be the North Dakota Redskins.
Or think
how would that fare?
Think about the great Denver Bronco organization. Would Denver ever threaten to leave Mile High City because there's too much high going on up in Denver? What if they decided they wanted to relocate to the West Coast and they're going to be the Los Angeles Broncos? There's no talk about that, and they sell out all the time. So I hope that some of the people in the Bay Area that are part of this tug of war about will they stay, please don't leave, please don't go. If they really want to go, you can only vote with your pocketbook. Quit supporting them. If they really want to go, quit supporting them and let them go. If someone wants to be there, let them at least say they want to be there. I don't mind if a team wants to try to profit by building a stadium. I don't think the New York Jets would ever threaten leaving New York because they want to go down to South Florida. I don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the greatest organizations in sports, saying they want to leave Pittsburgh because it's too cold and they're going to move out to the West Coast, Big C. I just don't see that. So I think a lot of this has to fall on the fans for buying tickets from people who are always threatening to leave, Big C.
Well, Charlton, there's a vacant stadium now in St. Louis. When you look at the Rams abandoning in the city of St. Louis.
Yeah.
And there's stadiums all around. There have been cities that have built stadiums hoping to lure teams. I mean, we talked about Oklahoma City leaving Seattle.
Yeah.
That arena was built before Oklahoma City had made that commitment to go there.
Yeah.
And so you've seen that around. San Antonio, there's a stadium sitting down in San Antonio, Charlton, that was built some 20 years ago trying to lure an NFL team. Even the Raiders and the Vikings had threatened to go down to San Antonio, but you know who blocked that?
Who was that?
Was the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones trying enemy domain as well as the Houston Oilers.
Yeah.
I mean, not Houston Oilers, Houston
Texans, yeah.
Enemy domain that we own this area, we own this market, and you cannot allow another NFL team to come in. Now, it's okay if it's not in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, you hear that in everything. It's okay if crime is not in your street.
Yeah.
Just like in the NFL. It's okay if they're not coming in and taking part of your revenue share.
Yeah.
You know, there's been talk for decades about the NFL going to Canada, to Toronto.
Yeah.
But Ralph Wilson blocked that forever in Buffalo because they're only like 2 hours apart, drive time. He was saying that Toronto was part of his intimate domain and television market, even though it was in a foreign country.
Well, let me ask you this question.
NFL, as long as you don't come in my neighborhood, I'm okay.
Well, Big C, this is the question I'm going to ask you. Now, when you look at pro teams up in Canada, and we see how Toronto, the Raptors, their fan base, they're amazing. There's about 20,000 outside. And,
electrifying, Charlie. Just electrifying.
And 22,000 inside. Now, I know there was a time when the CFL came into the United States. They had an organization in Sacramento. They had teams over in the East Coast as well. Do you ever see where the NFL would ever think about merging with the CFL and building really the North American Football Conference? Because we've seen there's a lot of money in Canada. Instead of everyone trying to go to Los Angeles, there's a lot of money in Canada where you have people that actually love sports Would that ever be something they would think about doing? We know the AFL merged with the NFL. Do you see that happening at all in the next 10 to 15 years, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I really don't see that happening. When you look at the two leagues and the difference in the two leagues, 3 downs versus 4 downs, a wider field, a faster play clock. Now, the people really don't realize that the CFL, the Canadian Football League, has probably been around, I believe, about 40 years longer than the NFL, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, who wants to give up what? Now, we've seen the NFL, Charlton, beat down 2 football leagues previous, okay?
Yeah.
They beat down the World Football League in the mid-'70s.
Yeah.
Where there was about a dozen teams that had formed, and the NFL choked them out in television with collusion. We saw the United States Football League, Charlton, in the mid-'80s, that the NFL did the same thing where they choked them down with collusion, would not allow them certain days on television.
Yeah.
They basically threatened the networks. If you broadcast their games, you can't have ours. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
But see,
now, which one do you want? You want this fledgling product,
right,
or you want this proven entity owned Sunday?
Well,
so
look,
if you want to be a part of our Sundays, then you don't broadcast their games.
And speaking of broadcasting games, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Ford dealer, home of the all-new F-150. They build it Fort Tough. And when you go down and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Also, when it comes to donating, go to BeneathHisWingsFoundation.org. Make a donation today. It's easy, it's fast, and secure. Now, Big C, I'll ask you because there's no Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup this year. It's all in the United States. But Canada supports their sports. The reason I'm thinking because the NFL and the CFL, it could work, I think, because there's a lot of money in Canada. And because there's so much talk about relocating within the United States, you can only sap so many markets. If they got the Canadian market, they already do it in hockey. They already do it somewhat in baseball, and they tried it also in basketball. But for anyone who wants to make money to look at Toronto and say, we don't want that type of marketplace, why would they not want that type of marketplace when you have as many people on the outside of the stadium as you have on the inside? If they put some emphasis, I think it would work, Big C.
Well, for starters, Charlton, you got to go up and build a stadium that's going to accommodate an NFL team. Now, if you think about it, in Montreal, they have the Olympic Stadium from the 1976 Olympics.
Yeah.
And in Vancouver, they have the stadium from, I'm going to say, the Winter Games about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That they held in Vancouver, so they have a huge stadium there.
Yeah,
as well as we've seen the one in Toronto with the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
For many of baseball games.
Yeah.
Now, are these stadiums accommodating for an NFL team? Because I know in those stadiums during the CFL games, they got about 55,000 seats.
Well, think about this too, though, Big C. Oakland, because they topped off about 10,000 seats, they only average about 55,000 for their sellout. If you look at cities like Jacksonville, they average about 40,000 people a game. If you also look at places like, Tampa's starting to sell out now because they have a great quarterback down in Winston. But all over the NFL, you're not seeing stadiums that are packed with 75, 80,000 people. And of course, when you talk about expanding or building new stadiums, like in Atlanta, they're building a new stadium. They're going to do one in Los Angeles. They already have stadiums in Canada. What if they added another 10,000 seats where everybody's playing in front of 65,000? It's just the media market, because you don't even see in the United States these great cities like Boston or Los Angeles or New York where the people are as crazy about sports as they are up in Toronto, Big C. And I think that money has to open someone's eyes. Instead of thinking of Las Vegas, why not expand into the great country of Canada, Big C? There's a lot more money in Canada than there is in Las Vegas.
But we've only seen the one city, Charlton. What about some of the smaller markets?
Yeah.
That don't have it? Now, we know teams like Edmonton, where Warren Moon played for years, were a dominant organization.
Yeah.
So when you look at facilities like that, and there's other smaller communities across Canada. You look at hockey that has struggled somewhat there economically in the smaller markets, and they've talked about moving teams, and we've seen that when the Quebec Nordiques came here, the Winnipeg Jets came here, that they left Canada because the economics weren't as strong.
Yeah.
So, that's what you got to look at. We can look at one or two cities and say these cities are great, but when you're looking at the entire league in totality, is there enough population and stadium size, Charlton, in the rest of the Canadian Football League beyond Toronto and Montreal and I think Vancouver to really support the NFL? And so that's what you have to look at. It always, Charlton, is going to come down to stadium size and luxury boxes.
Yeah.
That's what professional sports has gone to now. So if those stadiums are not equipped with multiple luxury boxes, and when you talked about Atlanta building a new stadium, they're building this new stadium, Charlton, because they could add another 26 luxury suites. That is very marketable to corporate America and the NFL, especially when you're having a Super Bowl. You can accommodate the money. You're not worried so much about the layman person. They will come into the stadium.
Yeah.
But you're worried about accommodating the money. So when you look at expansion into Canada, do those stadiums have enough luxury boxes? Not just enough seats, luxury boxes.
What do they say? What do they say? If you build it, they will come, Big C?
Yeah, but the Minnesota Vikings had to tear down the Metrodome, Charlton, because there was not enough luxury boxes. In Indianapolis, that stadium wasn't that old. Not Lucas Oil Stadium, but the Hoosier Dome.
Yeah.
They demolished that. When you think about Seattle several years ago when they demolished the Kingdom, to build the stadium that they have now, and on and on.
Yeah.
That's what they said about St. Louis. Was not enough luxury boxes in St. Louis, so they're coming back to Los Angeles. MetLife Stadium in New York, where the Jets and the Giants play.
Yeah.
The Meadowlands was not an antiquated place.
Yeah.
But it did not accommodate enough luxury, suites.
That's true.
So when you look at these things, it's not always about the size of the stadium. And when you look at Oakland, when they built that new side of the stadium in Oakland, it was about adding luxury suites, Charlton. It wasn't about anything else.
That's very true.
And what did the 49ers do in this last stadium that they just built in Santa Clara?
Yeah.
How many luxury suites are in this box?
Yeah.
In this stadium?
Yeah, that's true.
A third of the stadium is luxury boxes.
Well, we know that Money Talks Big C, and every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Worldwide, you can listen to the Charlton and Big C show. We thank you for listening. We love keeping it real, calling it real sports talk. And we thank you for listening. We appreciate you, and we hope you have a super fantastic day.